the Around the NFL podcast. Is the light at the end of the tunnel?
From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. I'm damned Hanzus with Gregg Rosenthal and Marc Sessler. Yes, it's a very spooky Halloween edition of Around the NFL, the Week 8 flagship program.
And how will it be very special, a Halloween edition?
If I would have thought about it, I would have said let's get some different music off the top.
Yeah. Some layers.
Yeah, but instead there you go.
Okay.
That sums up this right now. Will be the extent of the Halloween-y nature of the episode, I would imagine. But who knows? Maybe we could cook up a theme.
I am with you that I would minimize the Halloween aspect to it.
Well, we've got a lot of great football, so, you know.
We're also grown men.
Yeah.
Got kids, so that'll be great. But we have man work to do here.
And I would just point out,
breaking down Sunday.
I speak for Greg and myself that it's that time of year where people are going through things, colds, the little C. But you're powering through tonight because you're a professional, and a raging professional.
Wow.
And I would move you into like warrior category to some degree.
Yeah, I it's not even there yet. It's just something I feel like is percolating within the sinuses at the start of the program. So we're just going to power through it.
Well, I only mention it to build rapport with you to avoid the.
Yeah, I mean, bringing it up is like at all. Like, what's
right.
the point? We have so much to get to.
Mark. Oh, okay.
Dark Sessler.
Buried in a big spot, Dark.
Yes, it is the Week 8 flagship program. We're going to break down all the action from Sunday. A nice Sunday. We had the final London game of the year. We had, talking about it, last Sunday, the theme of the episode was, where are the good teams? This week, Daddy's looking for some great teams. And I think we might have a couple teams in the NFC. If they're not there yet, I feel good about it. So let's start with one of those teams, and it is not, and I repeat, the defending Super Bowl champion.
It is Garoppolo looking. Garoppolo under pressure, throws to the back of the end zone. Caught by Christian McCaffrey. Touchdown! CMC! Dynamite! The 49ers have the lead.
Beautiful call from Greg Papa and Tim Ryan, KNVR. I thought for a second that Tim had screamed "die" like to the Rams.
It sounded that way,
but it was dynamite. And Christian McCaffrey was dynamite. He became the 11th player in the history of our league to have a rushing touchdown, a passing score, a receiving score in one game, and the Niners continue to just pants Sean McVay in this rivalry. A 31-14 win for Kyle Shanahan's dudes at SoFi Stadium, or as George Kittle called it after the win, Levi South. Because there were a lot of people in red in that stadium. Mark, the game started well for the Rams, and it looked like we were going to have a classic back-and-forth NFC West game. And then San Francisco just imposed their will, and a lot of that ties back to CMC, who is everything they could have asked for, at least today.
Well, these were two teams that both wanted Christian McCaffrey. One of them got him, and it played all the difference today. And this was a huge Sunday for the Rams. You're coming out of your bye. Your season has been dipped in chaos and disappointment. You're not looking like the Rams team that we're used to under Sean McVay. So you go into your bye. What do? How do you adjust? And after the first half, I thought, I think they have. I think Sean McVay has figured out a lot of issues here because Matthew Stafford was kept upright, well protected. Those issues didn't seem to be there. They can't run the ball, and we know that, and there's no way to solve that immediately. But they had found a way to go toe-to-toe with or foot-to-foot, I don't know what body part to body part, with the Niners.
No, toe-to-toe is like the well-established.
It just seems sort of stupid to me, but I guess it's because it's just you're an inch further than the other person than you are than they are.
Wait, what?
Anyways, but
now let's break this down further. Would you like it to be elbow to elbow? What are you looking for?
Anything you want, really.
It all started to crumble in the third quarter. They opened up on third down. They were 6 for 7, the Rams, to open up on third down. They looked like they had solved other issues. And then they had like a 20-yard third quarter where the Niners and it was just essentially Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and you got the version of Jimmy G which almost always seems to be outside of that playoff game against the Rams, pristine. He threw the ball great, and the Niners just look to me like the team that understands who they are. They went out and got the asset in Christian McCaffrey, who was utterly unstoppable and looks like he's going to fit in so well. It's like a Shanahan fever dream scenario, just the way they can use him. And the Rams, they're not that team right now.
I mean, they had the ball 5 times in the second half, 4 times, I believe. 5 times, and they had 4 total first downs. And I listened to Sean McVay after the game because I'm with you. I think this was a huge moment in their season. And to get beat like a drum like that, where the offense completely falls in on itself, and then the defense struggles too, was surprising to me. And I was curious what he would say. And it's funny, he was really talking about how the defense in the secondary and the second level had a lot of things to clean up, and that's not what they expect. And I'm just thinking, like, you're right today. They didn't expect that defensively. Yet the fact that they go 4 first downs in 5 second-half drives, like, we're getting used to that with the Rams, and we're getting used to them losing big. They lost by 21 to the Bills, 15 to the Niners, 12 to the Cowboys, 17 to the Niners, and 3 of those are at home. Like, they are a team that loses big.
And so much of this, to me anyway, when I look at what's wrong with their offense, they can't run the ball.
They have zero balance.
It puts so much pressure on Matt Stafford, who's not playing at a high level this year, and he does not have a supporting cast that he entirely trusts. Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupp, and we'll get to him in a minute here. Allen Robinson is finally showing signs of life, but obviously has not been the difference maker they thought. Tyler Higbee had a drop in this game that kind of swung things over to San Francisco permanently in the second half on a catch that would have been a first down and maybe even a touchdown. That was really the last sign of life for Los Angeles' offense. And, even when they're down, Mark, in the second quarter, they had 1st and goal from the 1 or whatever, and they tried to run it twice, and it was like not going to work. And they did actually score on the ground on a Matthew Stafford scramble where he gets creamed by the pylon and gets in. But you're thinking to yourself, like, that's one of the big issues here. They don't win up front. They can't run the ball, and everything's just disjointed.
They have zero confidence in their ground game. And you're right. It becomes magnified in the red zone, right near the goal line, where they need someone to step up and be able to do that. And, I mean, we're seeing teams around the league with bad offensive lines who have turned towards the run successfully. And the Rams just seemed disinterested in that happening. And on top of it, I think the Niners own them psychologically because the second half of this game,
big time,
the Rams just started to become totally unglued. Allen Robinson had a big catch and then turns around and gets a personal foul for taunting. It's like, come on, this is the last thing you need right now. You're not a rookie, you're a veteran player. And it just, the second half was a meltdown.
I know I'm going to get burned by this, but I feel like Jimmy G's played better this year for the most part. There's been the killer moments, and that's just always going to be part of it. Maybe it's just I got used to the Jimmy G playing through a torn shoulder last year, and that was so bad that now they've got Garoppolo back to kind of his normal level, and you get CMC. The fact that they had CMC throw for a touchdown in this game, and McCaffrey ends up with 183 yards from scrimmage. That's almost as much as the Rams had. And Shanahan talked after how he put that into the playbook on Thursday after asking his staff, like, oh, can this guy throw? And they found some throw that he did 4 years ago. I mean, he did that because the Rams wanted it. He's sticking it to the Rams. Like, this was like a 2 ships passing in the night, and the 49ers absolutely owned them, and I think that's him sticking it to his friend.
And keep in mind here, 26 touches for McCaffrey, so he is now fully loaded. And they did this, the Niners, abusing Los Angeles in the second half of this game without Deebo Samuel, who missed the game with an injury. So it just shows and when I talk about, could the Niners be great? It's like this version of Jimmy G, obviously, 21-25 with 2 touchdowns and no picks. But when you have them fully you have CMC fully uploaded. You get Deebo back. You have Brandon Ayuk, who's come to life in recent weeks. You have George Kittle, of course. There's a lot of potential here for San Francisco when you also factor in the defense as it gets healthier is going to be a problem as well. So at 4-4, they're right in the mix of a muddy division, but I think they have more upside than almost anyone in the NFC this side of Philly.
Because their ceiling is just so different outside of the Eagles. And when they're on like this, they've had injuries. Some of their bad games have, I think, tied to defensive injuries, number one. If they get healthier and healthier, and, critiquing the idea that they went and got McCaffrey and it was expensive, I don't think there's any critique at this point because he went somewhere where he can be used well. And today he was absolutely unstoppable. He did have a couple fumbles. They were lucky the Niners recovered. But I'll take that along with what the upside and what he did and how he electrified the Rams defense.
And one last point on the Rams side. They had Cooper Kupp in the game with a minute to play, down 3 scores.
Keep doing this
throwing
stuff.
the ball, and he gets his ankle rolled up on. He was able to walk off under his own power. Seems like he'll be okay. But at the same time,
is banged up too.
McVay said, like, I don't know, I shouldn't have done that. I wish I could have done it differently, but he didn't, and that almost cost him. That's their season if Kupp goes out. I don't know what season Los Angeles has, but right now it's not looking good. In other news, in other games, there was only one game that had 2 winning teams, and it was at the stadium formerly known as the Clink. Remember that?
Yeah. They changed
Nobody
the name of
knows
that
what
too.
it is now.
It's Lumen Field. Let's check it out.
Gino going to throw again on first down. Pump fake. Going to throw deep. Got a man in the corner. It is Lockett. Touchdown, Seahawks. What a drive led by Geno Smith. Tyler Lockett was not going to let this one get away. He hung on 33 yards out, and the Seahawks go on top 19-13.
Ooh-wee. Steve Reibel with the call, K-I-R-O. Geno just keeps delivering, Greggy.
Yes.
Tyler Lockett caught a 33-yard touchdown pass from Geno with 9:18 to play. They then got a turnover on a kickoff, scored another touchdown, and that was that. A very close, tight game of the Giants turns into a 27-13 win over New York, who had entered the game, of course, 6-1. So they dropped to 6-2. But this game, Greg, another great effort. Yes, by Geno, but also by the defense, which is now stacked 3 games in a row. And I'm not saying we're ready to put I said the Mariners almost there. We're not. I'm not alone today. I'm not saying I'm ready to put the Seattle Seahawks into the great category, but they are very firmly now in the good team category. And again, this is one of the bigger surprises in the league.
They are. To me, they're the team that everyone's trying to tell me that the Giants are. And I'm not going to just make this an anti-Giants thing.
But you will.
But I will. What else am I going to do? They are the team, I think, that's got more staying power of these 2 teams. Because I think when you look at it, they're really talented. They have good players. They have 6 or 7 rookies playing key roles. They're getting better and better. Geno is number 3 in QBR on the season behind Mahomes and Allen. At a certain point, I'm just believing that he is, in terms of accuracy, right there with any quarterback in the league. He put the ball on the money again and again and again today, and his receivers couldn't come down with some tough catches, but he kept putting it there, and he came through. But the defense playing as well as they have the last 3 weeks lets me feel that Pete Carroll's got something here. It's a young group. They changed what their approach was in terms of getting more attacking. Their special teams has looked really good. Kenneth Walker, it didn't look great, 18 for 51. The Giants seemed really determined to stop him, but the play he made at the end to get the game's sealing touchdown was an incredible individual play. And I look at this team and I see a clear top 10 offense who has DK Metcalf, who apparently can't be injured, and he's back in the mix. And I see a very competitive defense, and I see a lot of verve out of their coach, and I think, why not the Seahawks long term? And that's why I locked them up correctly.
Very nice.
Well done.
A little dicey. It seemed dicey at the time, but again, that's part of me. I keep underestimating.
You came
Geno.
at me. I took that personally on Thursday.
right,
then you
MJ.
came into the office today, and you're like, "Oh, Greg's really sweating it out at 10-10." I felt good about the lock, though, the whole time.
You had a little bit of a tight butt there early in the fourth quarter. You could hear the nerves in your voice.
Because the Giants were hanging around in a game where they didn't look like
you signed up for that journey, though. So
yes.
I think it was a valiant lock. I mean, the thing is, a couple of weeks ago, we looked at Seattle differently because their defense was just an open barn door. And it's totally changed. And I think that is something that, like some of these better teams, if you actually have a version of defense that can impact games like this, I'm going to believe in you a lot more. The offense has been there all along. I feel like this version of Pete Carroll, he just clicks with Geno Smith. They seem willing to be super aggressive down near the goal line, throw the ball, and not like have the media tell you that your quarterback, Russell Wilson, must cook and we must have that constant tension between coach and quarterback. He kind of just wants to roll with Geno, and Geno's making the throws.
I want to say to that point that Pete Carroll absolutely should be in the Coach of the Year category or high up in those rankings. I think he should be the leader in the clubhouse. This is a team that nobody thought could do anything. And clearly, I think part of Geno's great season. It goes back to like the coaching, empowering Geno and making him seem from day one that he was somebody that they could just thrive with, not just be a game manager. So I just give credit to Carroll on that. And, you know, in the NFC West, which we thought was going to be a very different type of division, Seattle doesn't seem crazy that they could win this division.
No, they chose Pete Carroll ownership over Russell Wilson.
They nailed it.
And I kind of killed him for that at the time. And that's looking pretty good right now.
It is.
Pete Carroll went for it, and I feel like so many times the missed fourth downs get brought up a lot. But the successful fourth downs that absolutely change the game don't get brought up a lot. And Pete Carroll went for fourth down twice on their first touchdown drive in the second quarter, and they got it both times. Both were like an easy field goal range. One was on the 20, and one was inside the 10. And one, they get it to Lockett, and the other they end up running it in. They nail it both times, and I think it's because he's turning a new leaf, too, in terms of aggressiveness and realizing this is an offensive team. Let's go for it.
And I did accidentally call Seattle the Seahawks, the baseball team. I blame Jerome Boger, lead official of this game.
After the play was over, sideline interference. The coaching staff of the Seattle Mariners was in the restricted area. 15-yard penalty. After the enforcement of this penalty, it will be 1st and 10.
Said the Seattle Mariners.
I believe he did. Yeah. It is.
What is Scott Service, Mariners manager, doing on the sideline?
It is my favorite thing that's happened in the entire football season so far.
Well, the best
tough year in the NFL.
Well, it has been a tough year, but also I think if I were a ref and had the chance to click on the mic, I might go do some of those things on purpose, so you get in the. You're on the show now.
It also was the best penalty of the year because the reason Pete Carroll got that penalty, and it was Carroll, is because he was so fired up watching Geno Smith scramble for a 3rd and long that clinched the game. And since they applied the penalty after the first down, it didn't cost them at all. So, coaches should run onto the field and get in the way of the ref every time they're in that situation. He looks like he's 25 years old. I know your mom's always thought he was kind of a zaddy.
Very
and
attractive,
he's getting younger as this team
He
is
has
just giving
immense
him
life energy. Always has.
I find him remarkably attractive as well. It runs in the family. All right, so that was an important game between two winning teams. Now the best game of Week 8 found in a very unlikely place.
Snap spot. Here's Koo for the win. Kick is away and drive home safely. Younghoe Koo from 41 yards wins the ball game. Arthur Smith and Atlanta are 4-4. My goodness.
Indeed, West Durham, get out the bongos.
This game deserved it.
Yes, it did.
WZGC, good call. The Falcons kicker, Younghoe Koo, one of the best in the league, splits the uprights from 41 out after the Panthers missed 2 kicks that would have won the game, including a long extra point, which we'll get to. Falcons, 37-34, the win over the Panthers. So it is the Falcons holding on to first place. Mark, this was a game that looked like it was over, and then it wasn't. And there was a lot of drama along the way before Koo put things away.
And then it was, and then it wasn't, and then it was, and then it wasn't. And we have David Ely, somewhat of a reluctant Panthers fan, in our newsroom, and I could hear him intermittently screaming about something, then going totally silent about something, then screaming, and then go totally silent. And this game had all those ingredients. I mean, these two teams alternated 10 straight scores at one point. It was just one of those games where it became completely derailed. And poor Eddie Pinheiro, I don't enjoy watching kickers miss high-octane kicks and PATs in these situations because they're already typically outside of Justin Tucker's coolness. You're like a man on an island inside of most NFL locker rooms, I would imagine, to some degree. And when this happens, you have no friends. I mean, to miss the PAT that would have assaulted the game, you send it into overtime, you get the ball back on Marcus Mariota's terrible interception on his 29th birthday. Eddie Pinheiro set up for a 32-yard gimme. I mean, you should be doing that. If you had 12 beers in you were an NFL kicker, you should be kicking that 10 out of 10 times. I mean, you'd like to see that.
12's a lot.
And he misses it.
And it's Eddie Pinheiro, that will be his last kick with Carolina. You could bet that. And it just it's funny when kickers really get the yips in a game like that. You could tell right away, even though it was an extra point, it was a coin flip, extra point length, less than. It was a coin flip in overtime. It felt like, yeah, he could definitely blow this. And to your point also, like, he was getting a lot of pats on the back at the end of the fourth quarter when he missed the long extra point. But after the second one, you could tell it was just like, everybody's like, are you kidding me, dude? Like, we're fighting our butts off here, and you just killed us. But you got to put some heat on DJ Moore, too. You got to praise him for the incredible touchdown he had that allowed the Panthers to tie the game. But the call, taking off his helmet while celebrating, which I don't necessarily believe in, but it is what it is. That led to an extra point that would have won the game for Pinheiro, turning into, what, a 45-yarder?
Yeah, it turns into a thorny situation.
Which, by the way, he might have missed. So I have put, it was the same length as the field goal. Who's to say he wouldn't miss the extra point? Not that you want to give DJ Moore some credit, but I did see some people be like, DJ Moore giveth, DJ Moore taketh away. I mean, they're not equal. He completed an unbelievable catch where he sort of slowed up halfway, and the throw from P.J. Walker rolling left with under 20 seconds to go and no timeouts. That was the play of the NFL season. I got up out of my seat, and I just started sprinting down the aisle towards the Ely. I was like so excited.
Towards the Ely.
That was just like, that was
I'm
the
loyal
Kyle Murray
You're
play,
so
essentially.
loyal to football. That is a perfect example.
Well, I also had picked them, and I was excited. It just seemed like the play of the year. Like, it was one of the more magical moments of the year.
Terrible
and then
coverage by Atlanta. My goodness.
To miss that kick is crazy.
Atlanta was down multiple defensive backs today. They had a guy they brought up out the practice squad who got injured during it. That's the state of where their secondary was.
To put it in perspective, the Panthers got the ball there with 36 seconds to go and no timeouts, needing a touchdown. And they got the touchdown with 12 seconds to spare. That's almost impossible.
Yes, almost. Two things I wanted to add. Hey, Kyle Pitts Fantasy Owner Support Group. Talked about it on Thursday. Last stand. We got a nice day. We got about 90 yards and a touch. Let's stay the course. And along those same lines, Arthur Smith, nice to see you treat your quarterback, Marcus Mariota, like a real quarterback and not like he's Tim Tebow, letting him throw the ball. Guess what? Mariota, he made some mistakes, but he also made some throws as well.
He made a killer mistake, but he can throw the ball pretty well.
Give your guy a chance to make plays, and he made more plays than he failed in this game, and they got a win.
One thing I think that gets lost in the drama of the game, like, Donta Foreman, has been awesome, and he was dominant today. And I have a guy now.
Okay. We'll talk about it.
I've talked about Donta Foreman
You'll
before.
shut up. I'll tell you who it is. Tyler Algier for the Falcons. I love this guy, and he's my guy.
We're gonna have to check.
You don't control that. Sit down.
We have to check.
You will. I will. Remove you from the building.
I feel uncomfortable even having this conversation.
I will send HR a fiery letter about all the things I know about you.
Can you explain?
And you, Greg.
Explain why? Because I'm
Do you want to get into that game, Mark?
I'm surprised.
I don't think Foreman is really guy eligible at this point. He's been around, but Algier,
guys can be good. Well, Algier, what was it about his 2.8 yards per carry today?
It's been the past month. It's not just today. Like, go watch the Browns game.
No, I like him. He's
been powerful. They brought him in out of nowhere, and he's 5'11", 220, and looks like 800 bricks stacked up.
And he made a great play in as a receiver today on the 25-yard touchdown. And
we're going to submit it to the board. It will be probably
you're not picking a guy that's like an all-pro.
It's got
to be a project. That's how I see it.
It's about a 6 to 8 week turnaround, the review process. But
we
will be in touch with you.
In your world.
This bums me out.
In your absurd world.
Wait,
I have a point too.
This game bums me out though, because just for context, it would have been a 4-way tie at the top of the NFC South. The Panthers would have been in first place, and it would have been like another team that was sort of in the mix. They're not, but it's like it just ruined everything.
Right.
Eddie Pinheiro
that had
ruined
never happened
everything.
in Week 8, and it would have been the first time there was a 4-way tie this late in the season since the 1987 strike-shortened campaign in the
Eddie
NFC East.
Pinheiro, I don't know where you go next, buddy, but we feel for you. That could not have been fun. All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back. There is only one undefeated team in football, and I kind of get the feeling it's going to stay that way for a while. Let's check in with the Eagles.
Hurts looks, fakes, Still looking. He is going deep down the far side, and it is A.J. Brown again! Another touchdown! 29 yards!
Boom! A.J. Brown puts on the burners, meet me in the corner of the end zone, and it's a touchdown.
Oh, my goodness. Merrill Reese and Mike Quick with the call for WIP. Good times in Philadelphia Pro Sports. A.J. Brown had 3 touchdown catches in the first half. And Jalen Hurts threw 4 touchdowns as the Eagles roll to a 35-13 win over the Steelers. And that's not a surprise necessarily, the final score here, as we welcome in the great Nick So Shook on Halloween. But it's just another reminder of like how easy Philadelphia is making it right now against their opposition. So shook. Everybody's so shook when Nick is in the gym.
He doesn't skip a gym day because
Holy
of
God.
a manufactured holiday where you dress up in costumes.
Nick, how?
I mean, that cannot confirm or deny that. But those weightlifting sounds you hear, that's actually A.J. Brown packing on the muscle and then using it to dominate the Steelers secondary this afternoon. I felt bad for Minkah Fitzpatrick because each of the 3 touchdowns, it was Minkah closing it over the top and just being woefully late or out of position to make a play. And the entire secondary looking like a bunch of fools. He made them into whatever he wanted to make them. He dominated them this entire afternoon. The Eagles had no problem going to him, passing the ball around the yard. They ran the ball pretty well. Miles Sanders capped it off with a touchdown. It went from 7-7 to a much greater difference between the two teams. There was never really in question. In fact, it was so over and the Eagles had so little fear of the Steelers offense that they put Jalen Hurts on the sideline with 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They knew it was over. They knew the Steelers didn't have a chance. A resounding victory. In
nice move with TNF coming up. They have we got the Eagles and the Texans in a bizarre Thursday night football match.
I guess showed me the Eagles can win
one way to put
in so many different ways because there's been weeks where A.J. Brown's been a little more quiet and they've run the ball a ton and it kind of depends who the matchup is. They absolutely victimized Pittsburgh today. I mean, Ahkello Witherspoon got benched at one point. It seemed like they were moving the secondary around. And, I mean, these were the throws. It wasn't just A.J. Brown's, the catches. Like, Jalen Hurts, like, from last year to this year in terms of his improvement on some of these throws is startling. And, like, he was absolutely on the money today. And I just look at a Pittsburgh team. When you go play other sort of half-baked operations, you can hang around, and they do that. But then when you go play Buffalo, you get your doors blown off. When you go play the Eagles, you cannot hang around because they are a middle-of-the-pack, not fun to watch offense right now, and they've got very little on defense other than their reputation.
Yeah, Philly's one of the big 3, obviously, and these teams that don't come ready, they get embarrassed. And let's listen to Jalen Hurts talking about 7-0.
You know, it's just a uphill climb. That's what we always talk about. It's an uphill climb. So that's what it is, you know what I mean? And I honestly feel like there is no arrival. There is no arrival. You will never get to a point where you say, I've arrived. There is no arrival. There's only the journey. And I've embraced that journey. And I'll continue to do that and take it day by day and just try and climb.
Shooky, that's the old Steven Tyler in the Amazing video. Life's a journey, not a destination. Remember that one? Probably not. You're much younger than
You were like 4 at the time.
I don't want to close my eyes.
Oh, here we go.
Wrong ballad, but
close enough.
Still, that was good.
All Aerosmith songs from that era sound the exact same anyways.
But it was a good song. There were 7 of them, but it was good. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I totally agree. I don't see why the Eagles should believe that they're not going to be the favorite and be a team that's going to continue to remain undefeated. Their schedule sets up really nicely for them. They don't face a team with a winning record for like the next month. And I think one of the teams that could potentially have a winning record is the Colts. And I don't believe anything in the Colts either. So, you know, we see 6-0, 7-0 from the Eagles. I could see 11-0 very realistically because no team has really challenged them. There was a moment a few weeks ago when they were down 14-0 to the Jaguars and then turned it on a sloppy Lincoln Financial Field and dominated them in that game. You know, I don't like to get too hyperbolic with teams because eventually you're due for a loss and eventually you're going to run into some struggles. But right now, the way their offense is operating, because they can attack you from so many different angles, a lot of teams have a hard time shutting them down or slowing them down, and their defense continues to get better, especially up front. They harassed Kenny Pickett all day today. It was just like, it was two teams in different leagues right now. And I know the Steelers are working through some things and they got a rookie quarterback, but it just wasn't much of a competitive game after, the first quarter because the Eagles are just soaring at a different level right now.
We talked about possibly forking teams.
Mm-hmm.
It was a question asked on the Friday Fun Show, and I think the Texans were the only team we even could come up with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in this AFC, which is awfully deep, I'd be pretty ready to fork this Steelers.
I would join you on that mission.
I think they're forked.
Yeah.
Let's move on to a more competitive game, Nick Shook, in Minneapolis.
Now Madison heads to the backfield. Cousins shotgun. Short drop. Throws right. And caught! Touchdown! K.J. Osborne has given the Minnesota Vikings a 34-26 lead.
And we figured it out. They finally figured out how we can beat that blitz.
Paul Allen and Pete Bursich. Paul Allen's my guy. If someone who's your guy? Like I said earlier this week or last week, Joe Burrow. He's my favorite guy now. In the booth, Paulie Allen. That's it.
We should get him on the show.
Good candidate for that.
KFAN with the call. Yes. Kirk Cousins threw 2 touchdowns, ran for another score. Dalvin Cook, season high 111 yards and a score of his own, and a 34-26 win over the Cardinals. Shooky, I'm looking for great teams. Good's fine, but I want great. The Vikings on a 5-game winning streak. You're not ready to put them there, are you? But let's talk about it.
No, I'm not. And the main reason is, this is a win that you have to feel good about, but you also have to feel a little bit concerned because they really should have won this game by multiple scores. They left at least 6 points out there in the first half. They had a blocked field goal. They threw it on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. When you have Dalvin Cook, ripping up massive gains on the ground. I didn't agree with that, but they won the game. And, KJ Osborne gave them a lead and he gave them a win, but it took Zadarius Smith sacking Kyler Murray on the final play of the game to really seal it. They should have been done with this game, 4 or 5 minutes earlier in the game. And they allowed the Cardinals to hang around. And the Cardinals, an offense that's basically relying heavily on DeAndre Hopkins right now, who is definitely back. That's why they're good. They're not great. That's why the Vikings are not yet great, but it is nice to string all these wins together. And it's an NFC North that's very winnable. So keep on going and maybe you sort those things out. This is obviously not what we predicted for this division going into the season, but I need to see them be a little bit better. Maybe they'll figure it out in the next month.
They were given some gifts in this game, too, by Kyler Murray through that terrible interception to Harrison Smith. There was the play where the Cardinals were forced to or chose to kick a field goal because the shotgun snap hit Kyler Murray in the face mask or right around the head when he was staring at the sideline, which that kind of thing seems to happen to them weekly. Some sort of discoordinated scenario between center and quarterback or X, Y, and Z. Greg Dortch muffed that punt, which was huge for Minnesota. I mean, a lot went their way, and you're right, it came right down to the end, and they also benefited from the Cardinals just looking totally chaotic on that final attempt to go tie it up with Kyler Murray dancing around and getting taken to the ground twice. I feel like I see that every week, too.
Well, they're missing 4 starting offensive linemen, the Cardinals, including DJ Humphries, which was a late decision where we didn't know going into it. So you're losing your center, you lost your guard for the year, then you're down a couple tackles. That helps explain it, but I think one thing the Vikings have done a good job this year is they take advantage of those matchups. Zadarius Smith had 3 sacks and 4 tackles for loss today, and it reminded me of the Dolphins game where he ate up their backup tackles, but that's sometimes what these games come down to. When the other team is missing some of their good players, can you just crush that matchup? And Minnesota's got enough star-ish players. Their running game's getting going. Their pass rush is getting going. And they have Patrick Peterson playing well again, Shook, where it's like any one of these stars kind of steps up in a given week, and they're 6-1.
Yeah, Patrick Peterson had a great pass breakup in the end zone early in the game that prevented them from scoring what would have been a game-tying touchdown. I was like, oh, look, it's Pat Pete of old.
He's been pretty good this year.
So that all works out. Yeah. But, you talk about those random stars that come up and make plays. Kirk Cousins. He hit his highest ball carrier speed on his rushing touchdown in his career with the Vikings. It was like 18-point-something miles per hour. It looked fast. I was stunned. The whole world was stunned.
That's pretty fast for him. I would have guessed if you would have just said what would be the number, because I don't even know what a slow guy runs in the NFL. I would have said like 16.5, but 18. Nice, dude.
Well, what was the old saying? Everybody runs 20 miles an hour. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's mostly
he was kind of close to that.
yeah. You know, this quote. Oh, go ahead. Keep going, buddy.
Well, I to kind of tack on what Greg was saying, it was the KJ Osbornes. It was, some of the other guys, Zadarius Smith stepping up and crushing a matchup like that. It was timely plays, again, in a game where they had left enough room for the Cardinals to come back. They had the possession 2 times in the second or in the fourth quarter where they could have gone down and taken the lead. And both times their defense stepped up. And that's what was most important, is winning those close games, I guess, even if you give the opponent more room to get back into the game.
And here is a interesting quote with that in mind from Kirk Cousins. And he said something like this a couple of weeks now. I thought we were a really good football team last year. We just couldn't find the inches in too many games. Why we found them now, I don't know. Now, you could either read that as a shot across the bow of old friend Mike Zimmer, or you could read into it, if you want, as Kirk Cousins basically telling us, hey, we're actually kind of a regression candidate. We're going to finish 10-7 or 9-8. But right now, things are going great, and we're happy to be 6-1.
I mean, if they went 9-8, they would have to go 3-7 the rest of the way.
You know they got a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, we've seen them do exactly that in the past.
I don't think it's going to happen. I just want to throw one bizarre revenge game narrative out there that Patrick Peterson threw out after the game. He said that he's not happy with the Cardinals, and this is a future Hall of Famer, most likely, in Patrick Peterson, who played a long time for the Cardinals, that when he was late in his Cardinals tenure, that someone unannounced would print out articles and comments about his poor play from the internet and then put them at his locker. And I think he was hinting that ownership was doing this. I don't know who would do that. Maybe it'd be coaches, and that he's kept that with him. Those printouts.
Seems like Bruce Arians. It seems Arians.
It does not seem like an owner's going around doing that, taping the article to his locker. But
he was mad and he got his revenge. That was a real revenge game.
All right, there you go. The Vikings improved to 4-0 in their building, and if they do win the NFC North, they play a home game in the playoffs, at least one. Shooky. You're home, but I know you're heading to the gym now because you got to get one last pump in.
I just keep having this vision in my head of Michael Bidwill flying his Cessna into an airport, getting off with a leather backpack over his shoulder, and it's just stuffed with newspaper clippings.
Right. Clippings. And some little rolls of tape to go post in the locker room. That's a cute little trick.
He had an assistant hook up his printer to his laptop, and he has all these around the NFL articles from 2017 ready for stuffing into a locker. Shook would never be stuffed into a locker. We know that. Bye, buddy.
See ya.
All right. Shook is gone, but we move on, and let's head to the Meadowlands, where the Jets had an opportunity to change things at MetLife Stadium. An opportunity. That's all it was.
Snap back to Zach Wilson. He's pressured again. He's chased to the right. Mac Wilson in pursuit. Now Wise throws up. A throw downfield. Intercepted. McCourty's got another. Coming back to the 35-40. Far sideline 50. Go. Devin down the sideline to the 40. Stepping out of bounds after his second pick of the day.
I'd bench him.
It's a pretty good call, you got to admit.
Shut up, Greg. WBZ with the call. That was Bob Sochi and a sentient Powerade bottle. I think it's Mountain Berry is the flavor. And usually I don't agree with a sports power drink, but I think, yes, Zach Wilson did deserve to be benched in this game. Devin McCourty had 2 of the Patriots' 3 interceptions of Zach Wilson. Nick Folk, former Jet, kicked 5 field goals. And Bill Belichick got another win, passing George Halas on the all-time list. Final score, Patriots 22, Jets 17. That's more disappointment for Jets fans, and we'll get to that in a moment. But let's start with the Pats, who, listen, they're certainly not a great team. I don't necessarily think the Patriots are necessarily even a good team. But in this season, I think they could be a playoff team if they do things like they did today, which is superior on special teams, have a defense that got off the mat after Monday night's embarrassment and played well in this game, and lean on a running game that is very good with Stevenson leading the way. And that was enough because at that point, if you're a well-prepared team that wins in different phases of the game against a unproven, immature, I'm not saying immature as like a person, very immature as a quarterback, Zach Wilson, just let him beat himself and his own team, and that's what happened. This loss was totally on Zach Wilson, but credit to the Patriots for basically forcing the Jets to lean on their young passer, and it didn't work.
He just doesn't have it. I mean, there's too much stuff happening on a weekly basis. You talked about not wanting to see the old Zach Wilson backwards figure eight scenario where whenever there's pressure or heat on him coming towards him, like he will do something really madcap. He'll do something disorganized and just whip the ball into weird places, and it cost them to get the game today.
Zolak said throw it up in the middle of the play. I've never heard that before, and I know Zolak is a little different, but he essentially was saying, I know how Zach Wilson plays.
Well, I'm sure Zolak did that a lot in his own career.
Right.
Not the most gifted quarterback.
Rarely got in. I don't think he had many attempts in his career.
Well, for a reason.
It's saying, throw it up, this is our chance to actually score. And it was almost, the only way the Patriots were getting in good field position was getting these turnovers from Zach Wilson. And then he does it for you. At that point, that is a problem.
This game turned Jets up 10-3 late in the second quarter. They pick off Mac Jones, who's no good either, by the way. Mac Jones gets picked off, pick 6 for Michael Carter, 17-3. Jets up late in the second quarter, but no.
Oh, that killed them.
A late hit was called on John Franklin Myers on Mac Jones. It was borderline at best. It wasn't like one of those roughing the passer calls that you go nuts about. You could see why it was called, but it literally turned a 17-3 game into a 10-6 game after the field goal, and then the Patriots just started piling up field goals because they don't really move the ball through the air. The Jets defense was good in this game, and then Zach Wilson imploded. And let's listen to Robert Saleh. I thought Mike White was elevated to the number 2 spot on the depth chart, which I thought was notable over Joe Flacco. I thought he should have been in the game in the fourth quarter. After the game, Robert Saleh was throwing his support behind his young quarterback. Where have I heard all this before?
We got faith in Z. He's played good football. He's taken care of the football since he's gotten back, and he's shown flashes of good football. So everyone in the locker room still has his back.
I don't know about everyone, because Elijah Moore was asked about his chemistry with Zach Wilson. Here's what he had to say.
How would you describe your chemistry with Zach on the field?
Probably, I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you. I don't get the ball. I don't know.
The problem is that's not the first quote like that by a wide receiver. There's just been disenchantment with the fact that post Joe Flacco,
it's been Elijah Moore mostly. It's been in the media about it. I may have missed it. Well, Denzel Mims has been having problems since he got to the team.
Yeah, I just think there's got to be chatter. I'd love to be on their group cell threads or text threads where it's like, hey, you know what? For all Flacco's ills, we were throwing the ball for 300, 400 yards a game.
It's disappointing because without Breece Hall, obviously they have a lesser margin for error. They're going to need their defense. And it sounded like their defense could have won this game potentially. The 288 yards for the Patriots, 3.8 yards per carry per play, which is really low. And Patriots fans were all begging for Mac Jones to be benched at halftime. And analysts were saying they thought Mac Jones was going to be benched at halftime. So it's strange that the Patriots, yes, they win the game, but they finished the game with 5 drives where they were in position to put it away. And in those 5 drives, they went 4 and out 3 times and got 1 first down. And so I think there's more legitimate questions. I haven't been as worried about Mac Jones until this game, but now there's real questions about Mac Jones and his direction, because there is a big difference between him and Wilson. I mean, he did play 16 games, Dan, as a starter and was really productive and was like a mid-level starter. And the fact that he's taken what now looks like a step back and it seems scrambled as a second-year starter, he was the best thing about their season last year, and now he's like the thing that's holding them back potentially.
Let me clarify. I'm not saying that Mac Jones is at the same level as Zach Wilson. Jones has done way more in his time. I just, in general, not overly impressed by him, and he really did get bailed out on that pick 6, because that could have changed the Patriots and the Jets season, that roughing the passer call. But I'm not making excuses, and a lot of people obviously in my Twitter saying, oh, Dan, it's going to be really hard for you tonight. He's like, no, it was much harder last week when they won and lost Breece Hall and Elijah Vera Tucker, and you guys are giving it to me a little bit, and I got other stuff like, Dan, why are you in a bad mood about the Jets? Like, they're 5-2. because I kind of saw this coming. Like when you lose the engine of your offense in Breece Hall, and then you have to turn it to Zach Wilson in a big moment against Bill Belichick. What we knew about Wilson going into this game, I was hopeful that they were going to win, but I was never very confident because this always felt like an outcome. And in general, on the Friday Fun Show, I talked about how this could be it for Zach Wilson. This could be the moment that we remember him by, good or bad. I still feel the same way, that Zach Wilson is probably not the dude. And Jets fans are now beginning this dance again, where we're starting to look ahead and decide whether or not we need to get a new quarterback. They need to show significant growth with him at the quarterback to invest beyond this year. There's still a lot of season left. They get Buffalo next week. That's not going to be any easier. But this was a huge moment for the Jets and their fans. The stage was set, and the quarterback lost them the game in a really ugly way. And that's disappointing to me, but not stunning, because we've had a lot of that.
Good. And I don't mean good about what happened today, but you want to find out that you don't have something in Zach Wilson as fast as possible versus one of these merry-go-round scenarios where we're hearing about all offseason how Zach Wilson's going to grow in X, Y, and Z. This is a good team. They've got a good roster. You've got a good general manager, a good coach. Don't get sabotaged by the wrong quarterback for another week if you don't need to.
But the thing with these two teams is they're trying to make the playoffs this year. And I think Belichick is going to stay loyal to Mac Jones and stick with him for a while, but that's going to be a question. And to the Zach Wilson point, that is a question, because they have a whole locker room full of guys who are trying to make the playoffs. I don't think Joe Douglas or Robert Saleh's jobs are going to be in danger at all anymore, but they want to get to the playoffs too, and you eventually owe it to those guys, and he's going to make them make a decision at some point, partly because we've seen what the offense looks like with Flacco, and not that it was great, but it was an NFL offense. It was a passing offense, and this just isn't with
do you
Wilson.
really want to see
he's the worst starter, he's in the mix as the worst starter in the league.
Zach Wilson against the Bills, if they don't make the decision now, that could be the executioner song.
But you know what? To the point, like I said last week, that when Breece Hall went out, it lowered their ceiling. It's a developmental season for the team. I want to see Zach Wilson. When I say I want him on the bench at the end of this game, I didn't mean bench him for good. I meant get Mike White in there and see if you could get 2 scores quickly and steal another game. But this absolutely is a developmental year for the Jets, even if they're improving. And you need to know whether he can play or not. And there's starting to be more and more mounting evidence that he just doesn't have the ability to do what, Mark?
Play the guitar.
Play that guitar.
Play the guitar.
He's not a musician, which is sort of a problem for some athletes.
Keep an eye on the Patriots trade market here. Nelson Aguilar, Devontae Parker, and Kendrick Bourne combined for 3 targets and 2 yards in this game. And I was interested to see Rap Sheet talking about kind of all their receivers are available this weekend or this week. So
like all these teams of Brandon Cooks' past being connected to Brandon Cooks this week.
I love these teams telling us that these mid-range players that you wouldn't send a bag of rocks for are available in trades. It's like, great, thanks for the update. You've really nice reverse psychology.
Kendrick Bourne, leading receiver from a year ago. Come on.
If you thought the Jets today were depressing, well, guess what? The Detroit Lions are the team of around the NFL, and that is not going well at all. Let's check in.
That was a mistake.
And Tua out of the shotgun, back to throw now, looking, throws it. Touchdown, Miami, Mike Gesicki. And the Dolphins have their first lead of this football game. An 11-yard touchdown, Gesicki's 4th of the year.
What's the problem, Greg?
They're always just so chill on the Dolphins
you
podcast.
Like
a little more verve. Let's get excited.
I
love him, but that was a great play.
Doesn't sound like
a great
love.
comeback. You're right. Yeah, Tua read through all his progressions, found Mike Gesicki late in the 3rd quarter for the touchdown that capped the Dolphins' rally from a double-digit second-half deficit. I agree. I mean, you got to be pumped up there in a big spot. Dolphins radio. Anyway, 31-27 win over the Lions. Maybe because it was so inevitable, because playing the Lions, it doesn't matter because you know they're going to give you infinite chances to score 30 to 40 points. Anyway, Tyreek Hill, 12. He's going to have 2,000 yards, by the way. Tyreek Hill, 12 for 188. Jalen Waddle, he's going to have 1,700 yards, everybody.
It's insane.
8 for 106 and 2 touchdowns. And Tua has another win. So, Greg, start with the Dolphins.
Yeah, let's be positive first.
Let's start with the Dolphins because they're 5-3. They're now tied with the Jets behind the Bills in the AFC East. And this was a game personally I wanted to see. I expected it. In fact, I predicted it on the Friday Fun Show, exactly what happened. Just light up a defense, score a ton of points, and get things rolling. Not just big numbers, big, score points, and they did in this one.
Right, and in a tough spot where their defense gives up 27 points in the first half. Their defense doesn't get a single stop. There was not a punt by either team in the first half of this game. So Tua was in a spot where he had to keep delivering and responding with points. I think this was, if not the best game of Tua's career, it's this and the Ravens game earlier than this season. And I say that because just the decisions were all pristine, and you can say, oh, it's the opponent. Yeah, but you still have to make those quick decisions and deliver to the right guy in all the different spots. You mentioned how he was on the third progression with Gesicki. Their offensive line played fantastic, but he had 13 completions that went 10 or more air yards. 10 of those were in the 10 to 20 range, and that's where the Dolphins live. He's just accurate, and he was sloppy last week. He was not sloppy today. Every pass was right on point, and yeah, he has to kind of run up to get it deep to Tyreek Hill, and it feels like it's a little underthrown. It doesn't matter. It's still 40 in the box score, and it counts.
The one thing that with Waddle and Hill is they seemed like today and other weeks, they're so open.
Yes.
They're just sitting. I mean, and he's making those throws. So I'm
he
with
made
you.
a
It's
couple
credit
good
to
throws
him.
and a couple scrambles too, which were, I thought, real in improvisational plays too. On top of that,
He's a good
put it
fit.
over the top.
Yeah. He's a good fit for the offense, right? Because yes, he's not the guy that's going to Herbert you with bombs, but with the guys and their skill set, get the ball down to them at 12 yards downfield, and then let them get 40 yards.
I mean, these Hill and Waddle had 20 catches for 300 yards, essentially. We've never seen anything like this in terms of a wideout duo.
Right, and the scoring ended weirdly at the end of the third quarter. The Dolphins have kind of a ball control offense. It doesn't feel like that because they have such chunk plays, but their games sometimes have very few possessions, and the Lions only had the ball 3 times in the second half. So after scoring 27 points in the first half, they only had it 3 times in the second half. They had 2 pretty quick punts. And the Dolphins offense, the way they're playing here, you punt a couple times against them, you might not get the ball back for a while, and you're done. The game really turned on the final play of the first half. Josh Reynolds dropped a touchdown, which would have given the Lions 31 points in the first half, and it would have made the two teams have 600 total yards, which I was rooting for because it was just a nice round number.
Sure.
I was going to tweet it. But he dropped it.
That's the tragedy.
Right.
Here.
He dropped it, and then they kicked the field goal. And then there was a play on 4th and long late in the game where the Lions were trying to take the lead back, where I thought Goff threw a pretty good ball, giving Reynolds a chance to make a play. And again, he didn't make a play. It was right on the goal line. Would have been a big play, and that was that.
Let's now has become part of our sentence for our let's face it at this point, mistake of selecting.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Don't try to distance yourself from this, Mark. We're noticing you're doing that every week. You voted with us.
I am acknowledging that I made a mistake a month and a half ago.
We are all on the same. We sync together on this, Mark.
I never said I didn't vote for the Lions. I am simply saying it was a terrible decision, and I'm accepting 1/3 of it.
You bailed after one game.
I don't, but I'm not.
You were like Elijah Moore.
You're doing the Dan thing where you're
rock of the boat. Mark's see you guys.
You're doing the thing where it's oh, Mark, you're not being It's I made the mistake. I am part of the process that I am calling faulty. I'm just calling it faulty where a company's no, we're sticking with it. We have to stick with them. But it is a sentence, and it was a bad job.
I believe that the Raiders team of ATL from about 5 years ago that you rubber stamped, this is your chance to get even a little bit because you went down with the Raiders that year.
When I picked the Vikings as the team of ATL, you spent 2 months acting like you weren't part of that process.
There we go.
So point the finger back at yourself for how you behaved years past.
There it is. You're trying to settle a score.
No, I am telling you, I'm not sitting, it was you and Greg, and look at me, I had nothing to do. I mean, we have video and audio evidence.
I still think you'll rally, Lions.
Well, Greg, you're the psychotic one. We'll rally to 4 wins.
Part of our sentence, I was going to say, is Dan Campbell hearing him sad every Sunday. Let's listen.
My thought is that as frustrating as it is, I know how close we are because we are still talking about one play. And the hard thing is to just keep doing your job, and staying in the thick of the storm. And the easy thing is to go down below and get under the blanket and eat all the food and whatever. It's the guys who are going to stay on the deck and just continue to do their part because they know the sun's coming. Those are the guys we're looking for. So.
See, Dan and I are under the blanket right now. We're eating the food.
That's where he's telling you not to go.
Oh.
But
that's where the people with no courage
they're
go.
that's where
I would like to go there. That
in
sounded
our
better
defense,
than
it was
this.
confusing. Then we're on the deck waiting for the sun.
You're meant to be up on the deck,
for
ready for battle.
We can't get out. Once you're in, you're in. But it's been bad. They've been, I think, 0-5 since we selected them.
It is particularly cruel and
can't get a whole lot worse than 0-5.
Like we would be on top of this whether we had picked them or not. But man, the way they lose these games, every game has like a moment. They are in all these games. They don't have a pass rush though, and I don't know if that's going to change. Aiden Hutchinson and the rest of the defensive line just can't get any pressure. It's killing them.
All right, let's take a break and move on to happier things. Welcome back. I'm not looking for good. I'm looking for great. And with that in mind, let's head to Big D.
Fields in the gun. Back to throw. Parsons coming. He flushes out left. He stops. He dumps it short to the 25. Still moving Montgomery. Fumble the ball. Recovered by Dallas. Micah Parsons is on the ball.
And it's still alive.
He's still running. He's still moving with the ball. To the 10, to the 5, to the goal line. Parsons recovered a fumble and brought it all the way back.
Freakish. Brad Sham and Babe Laufenberg, KRLD. The Micah Parsons LT stuff that we talked about, whatever. You could be on that debate. You could say it's too premature. You could say he's at that level potentially. But that's the type of play. It's like that was LT-like. He flushes Justin Fields out of the pocket. He runs the play down 12, 15 yards downfield, picks up the ball, then has the smarts to run even though it seemed like he was down by contact, and he scores a touchdown. That basically iced the game. A 49-29 win for the Cowboys.
Thank you to Justin Fields for hopping over him.
That was remarkable that Fields, just to get out of the way, missed him by inches, allowing that touchdown to happen. But let's face it, the Cowboys probably would have taken over and scored a touchdown anyway, the way this one went. They scored the first 4 times they had the ball for the first time in, I believe, 8 years, Dallas did. And while Chicago was game and they were competitive for large chunks of this game after falling behind huge early, they were just ultimately overmatched by Dallas. And the reason why, Mark, I'm saying, maybe we could put Dallas into the great category, not in the big 3, but in that next spot below, is because now you're seeing the offense clicking in concert with that defense that we already know could be one of the best in the league.
Right. The defense is NFC title game worthy. It is potentially Super Bowl worthy in this 2022 campaign. And they got to the record they were at and won with Cooper Rush and made a thing out of Cooper Rush because it was the defense propping them up week after week. When you go look at what Dallas did today, and if you look at the last 8 quarters of Dak Prescott, some of his throws today and the way that they just absolutely fried Chicago's defense, which looked good against the Patriots week ago and has had some good games. 1 scoring drive, 1180 yards, 869, 675, 854. They're just able to string together plays, make passes through the air. Tony Pollard, I'm with you that Zeke and Tony Pollard are a good combo, but Tony Pollard is a starting running back on any other team. Flat out looks awesome. And
he's better than Ezekiel Elliott.
Well, I think there's just debate where it's like we're not meant to say that or something, but it's just like he just looks to me like a better version of a starting running back. But that's fine. That's a good problem to have. And they've got weapons all over the place. And if you're going to get this version of Dak Prescott today and the way that they called plays, they're fringy on great. I never really believe in the Cowboys with this whole thing. That's my issue. I think they could be in this world.
The Zeke Pollard thing is really a Jera-driven narrative more than anything else because he's paying him so much, at least for one more year.
Fantasy, too.
It's fantasy, too.
And Zeke has he has value to the team on some level because he can grind out yards. He's a good goal line guy, obviously. But I think it's clear to anybody that watches these games that Pollard is the better, more dynamic running back. And I do think even whatever Jarrah says, because Jarrah loves Zeke too, so he's showing him some respect, you're going to see it in the box score more and more that this is Tony Pollard's backfield.
Right. It was the proof of concept game. Okay, we don't have Zeke. Let's put up almost a 50-burger on a pretty good defense. This game, changes a little how we see the Cowboys. Not that we should need to see Dak Prescott playing well, but it's nice. It's just been a while. And like the Bears a week ago changed who I think they can be this year just in terms of a frisky team that's watchable. And in this game, move the ball. Fields played better. They ran the ball great. Again, I think Dallas showing that they can put up this type of offensive performance does put them in the great category, because the numbers would tell you, Dan, that they're already pretty close to great. They were 3rd or 4th in DVOA as a team with average quarterback play at best going into this game. And now you have Dak Prescott. If you get normal Pro Bowl Dak Prescott, that's cooking with gas.
Yeah, and I like in the power rankings, for example, they're an easy number 4 for me this week, like they were an easy number 4 last week. So they're interesting and potentially getting better. Chicago ran for 240 yards on the ground, this was kind of a weird game, and they jumped out early, and then you could see Dallas kind of let up a little bit on defense. We'll see if maybe the defense now is coming down to earth a little bit after carrying the offense. That it's a long season. This stuff can happen sometimes. But overall, I feel very confident about the Cowboys moving forward.
We're back to a place where Justin Fields had 46 yards passing at the half, but something that's happened to them over the last couple of weeks, you mentioned it, Greg. I think Fields has gotten better as a passer. What he does on the ground legitimately scrambles defensive coordinators, and they're just a great running team in general. And so I don't know, it felt like the entire run of this podcast, the Bears have been a frustrating watch. They had a couple playoff years in there, but you weren't buying it. This team is enjoyable, and even today, there were moments and big plays where it's like, I'll sign up to watch the Bears weekly, and we haven't really given them credit for doing anything in a long time because they didn't deserve it.
Yeah, Fields is getting better, and he was good in this game. He doesn't have a lot around him. And I talked about it on Thursday, after that great emotional win over the Patriots in primetime, you trade away Robert Quinn, and then the defense doesn't even show up until halftime of this game. But you scored 29 points on one of the best defenses in the league, so that is progress. This is a developmental year for Chicago, and I think we're seeing some good things despite this loss.
I also like when Jerry starts getting frisky after the game. And they're 6-2, which is great, and they look great, but they're still stuck in that division where they got some ground to make up. And they're looking at the trade market, he said, and they said they feel good about their chances there.
I didn't know where you were going with this at first, but now I do.
And he said also, well, there's some guys that aren't even on other teams that are available. And someone was like, oh, Odell?
Of course.
And and he was like, oh, I didn't say that, but he did it with the winking grin that Jerry
is. I'm just a good old boy, you know
me. I was like, okay, I could see that. If I'm Odell Beckham, I look at the Rams and I look at the Cowboys, and it just makes sense.
You know I'm just an old huckster at heart.
He's
smart. I'm not going to tell you a thing. I'm quiet as a June bug.
I got 3 whiskers in me.
Whiskers?
Whiskies.
Oh, Let's move on. We can't say anymore.
Give it to Henry, 25-20, 15, outside to the 10, puts a move on to the 5, stiff arm, dives over the pylon, touchdown, Titans! That was a man-sized run by the man, Derrick Henry! What a great run by Derrick Henry!
He's not a man. Derrick Henry's the big dog. Feed the big dog, and he will growl and bite and destroy. Mike Keith with the call, WGFX. Derrick Henry, for the 4th time in a row against the Texans, went over 200 yards on the ground on 32
What's
carries.
going on here?
I mean, he's one of the great running backs of his era and a future Hall of Famer, and he could do the stuff that Adrian Peterson could do in his prime, like one of those dudes. Anyway, that's all they needed, Derrick Henry, because even with Ryan Tannehill out of this game, boys, and the rookie quarterback not doing a damn thing, you had Derrick Henry. And that tells you, Mark, what's special about a guy like Henry, what separates him from other great running backs. the entire Houston Texans staff and every player knew that the Titans weren't going to be able to move the ball if they didn't run the ball, and it didn't matter. Henry just got the job done, and Tennessee keeps winning as a result.
That's like the most powerful version of an athlete, where it's like everyone knows, here comes Derrick Henry.
You know what it is? Imposing one's will.
Yes, I think that's well. It also lets impose his will 32 times and have the quarterback throw 10 passes.
Which was a smart decision.
Yeah,
because
I mean, that's what you want the Browns to do with Nick Chubb and other teams to do. I mean, in this case, it works.
I mean, they could give the ball to Hilliard a little more. Dontrell Hilliard goes 8 for 83. I just worry, Derrick Henry gets these 32 carry games, and he's had a few lately. But it's crazy that he kept the 200 yards and 2 touchdown streak against the Texans going. It's preposterous that he's done it. He's done it 4 straight times, and it is exciting when you can just see something special in sports. And one of his first runs of the game, he was slaloming through the Texans line and just like jumping back and forth laterally. And you're like, wow, he looks as explosive as he's ever looked. And I hate when teams like the Texans tack on 90 yards on a garbage time drive, because the yardage in this game was 354 to 71 before that drive. That's how much of a dominant game it was.
You had Davis Mills, who took another big step back after taking a step forward last week. He had 17 yards, I believe, through the air in the first half of this game. It was not. We'll bring in Gravedigger here because I know he's feeling hot. Even though A.J. Brown proved to be godlike for another team, you could just forget about that, because not only did the Titans win again, you locked it up, just like I locked it up, just like Mark locked it up. Did I get everybody?
Good job all sticking with that.
Well,
I'm
called
surprised.
nobility.
I think that was great.
It's a noble move.
We stuck with the Titans because the Texans stink, and that's what it comes down to, Justin.
Yeah, the Texans were not a good team today or this season, I guess. The Titans averaged
insight.
Titans averaged 7 yards a carry, and that includes Malik Willis's 5 carries for 12 yards. They threw 1 pass in the second half, and it was like...
Wow, it's Mike Vrabel's dream.
It was Malik Willis rolling out of bounds, literally jumping out of bounds and throwing a pass right before he landed at it. Like, it could have almost been counted as him just being out of bounds, but that was the only pass they had to throw in the second half. And just, like, everyone in the stadium knows that the Titans are going to run it on every play, and they still pop off 7 yards a carry is unbelievable.
I don't know if that doesn't work in January, as we've seen, but and it's not going to work probably if Malik Willis is starting against the Chiefs next Sunday night, which is a huge game for Tennessee in terms of a measuring stick. But ultimately, they have things under control. Malik Willis didn't show me a lot, but like we said, they didn't really give him a lot to do in this game. But I'm feeling good about Tennessee. Again, they're built very well to succeed in this landscape of the NFL. I think you tweeted, Justin, that they are in line right now as the 2nd seed in the AFC. They are going to be in that mix because I think they're going to continue to grind down teams and close out games.
Yeah, the offensive line still looks like a really great run-blocking unit, even though they cannot pass protect very well. But if you want to just break down Malik Willis really quickly in his first NFL start, I would say 8 of his 10 passes were really bad. And one of those includes a throwaway that, like, he should have run the ball for, like, at least 20 yards, and he threw it away. He missed Chigakwanko on, like, a tight end wheel route that would have been a touchdown, just, like, late and overthrew it. His interception was late and off target. He had one really nice play rolling out to the left where he, like, the arm angle rolling left to throw to get the ball to Robert Woods on the biggest completion of the day for 16 yards was a really fantastic play. But even that one was like him sitting in the pocket, holding it too long, and then making something happen afterwards. But like he's not processing quickly at all. He's not seeing the field well, and he's not getting the ball out of his hand.
Let's get Tannehill back in the lineup, basically.
Yeah, they need it.
And by the way, he was...
Good thing they had the Texans this week.
He had the ankle and then came down with some type of stomach bug or something, Tannehill, some type of illness. And this worked out perfectly because you took care of business, you give him more time to rest, get the ankle right, and hopefully they're ready to roll against Kansas City. That's going to be a good one.
It's kind of an example if you're Ryan Tannehill. It's like, oh, you don't want to get injured and be out of the lineup. But this was the guy who was, in theory, breathing down your neck. And it's like, let's press pause on Malik Willis for a bit here.
Yes. Let's head to the Superdome where, strange thing in the NFL on this eve of Halloween, only one team showed up. It's tricky.
That's weird.
Hard to be competitive in that scenario.
Dalton to throw, looking, dumps it across the middle. Kamara's got it. 25, 20, 15, 10, near side, and he will scoot into the end zone. Alvin Kamara does it again. 3 for 3, 3 TDs for AK.
My favorite thing about Alvin Kamara is if he's near the goal line with the ball. Not so much on that play, but there was another run where it's just like he's gonna get over the goal line. He is the best finisher in the league. Maybe Derrick Henry. But he's a star, is my point. Mike Haas with the call, WWL. 3 touchdowns, yes, for Alvin Kamara, and a 24-zip win over the Raiders. This came after Kamara, after that ugly loss to Arizona on Thursday night, in the locker room after the game, really gave it to the team and demanded that they clean up their act and be better. And, Greg, that's what a leader does. He then backs it up with big-time play, and the Saints are off the mat, and the Raiders are off in space somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with the Raiders here, and we'll get to them, but I like that Pete Carmichael, their play caller, made a point to get Kamara the ball early and often. I think it was something like 6 or 8 of their first 12 plays was to Kamara, and all game Dalton was looking for him on the check down and sometimes as a primary receiver, and I think that's why they kept Andy Dalton as their quarterback. It sounds silly, but he gets Kamara the ball, and I think that is a window into who he is as a quarterback versus who Jameis is, who just never takes checkdowns and is bad at the short game. And what this team needs is a quarterback who's good at the short game because they don't have their wide receivers right now. The fact that they went up and down the field on Vegas without Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas was impressive. But the fact that they shut out the Raiders, who had been scoring 33 per on defense, was way more impressive and gives me way more optimism that this team could bounce back to frisky because their defense has stunk all year, and you could see it from the very first snap. They were so active and just getting after Derek Carr. Davenport, Jordan, even Peyton Turner, their first-round pick, were just getting after him, and they ended up with a goose egg. They had 19 yards until their garbage time drive, the Raiders, for the entire game.
I mean, I just wonder if it's the Raiders that flat out stink after I spent 2 weeks thinking, you know what, they've changed their identity.
You're not alone. You're not
Under
alone
Josh
on that.
McDaniels, they're going to run the ball. It makes Derek Carr much more efficient. Like Devontae Adams disappeared today. It's like whatever they think they came into this game trying to do, they couldn't do.
Hey, easy on the criticism of Derek Carr because he's going to be the Jets quarterback next year.
That should be a fun offseason.
Yeah. You know, I'm a little mad now in retrospect that this had all the trappings, Greggy, of a classic cornered animal game.
Same.
For the Saints. They were
So
at
annoyed.
home after like half a bye week against an inconsistent opponent, and they just whipped up on the Raiders, who are a mess. Let's listen to Josh McDaniels, who, by the way, for the second time in like 3 or 4 weeks, got called into the principal's office to speak with Mark Davis before he addressed the media. That's like a 2 strikes.
I don't like that.
3
Yeah.
strikes, maybe you're out. Let's listen to Josh McDaniels. It's not going well, Greggy.
I have to do a much better job of getting ourselves ready to go here. We're better than that, and I apologize to Raider Nation for that performance. And again, I own that. That's my responsibility. So,
Sessy was really annoyed that this was not his game. This was the all-time Sessy game.
Dream?
It was 24-0 early in the third quarter. This game was put to bed early in the third quarter, and it ended at 12:44, I think, Pacific time.
That's clean.
It was like over so early.
Sensual.
It essentially was a second half party for everyone in the Superdome, and there was no let up to it.
Meanwhile,
it was crazy.
Mark, you're saddled with Carolina-Atlanta,
Which
the
went
game
on
that
for
wouldn't end.
Yeah, it went on until about 4:30 Eastern. But I you know what? Like, to say you like a game like this, like, it's just a rarity in this 2022 season.
It never happens. Shout out to Chris Olave, who went 5 for 52. But I just watch him every week, and he can do everything. He is the best rookie receiver in the game this year, and he's a number one. If anything, he was undersold. He's carried this passing game, Olave, as a rookie. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and at some point, I imagine Michael Thomas will come back. But there is on the path to friskiness. Getting those 2 guys on the field together, a healthy version of Michael Thomas, would be very interesting with Alvin Kamara healthy. And
in this division,
Andy Dalton,
they got a chance.
A little Taysom thrown in. All right.
Oh, yeah.
It's not over yet.
Can we see them string together like 3 wins?
Once
again,
again,
such a give me a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see more, but this shows their upside.
I think the Saints are enjoyable on many levels, and they have been, but it's like I could also see them dropping the next 2 games and us talking about the defense falling through the floor again.
I agree, but this was like a proof that they are better than they've shown.
There's something in there.
Taysom Hill and what?
There's something in the mix.
Okay.
Mark.
Don't check the stats.
I don't disagree necessarily, but I would like a little more proof. If we're gonna,
we're not sending it to the NFC title game right now. We're just saying, okay, all right.
I can't even imagine what the NFC title game is going to be at this point. It's going to. I mean, show me team number 2.
Eagles, Cowboys 3. Eagles, 49ers. I mean, there's some good teams here.
Let us take a break. Be right back. All right. Let's head for the last time this season. Another grand success over there in England. The London series capped with the Jaguars, of course.
Now it's up to the Broncos defense. 1st and 10 at the 25. Shotgun snap. Trevor Lawrence looks right, throws right. That ball is going to be intercepted. That ball is intercepted by K'Wan Williams. His first interception as a Denver Bronco. And it may have very well sealed the deal here in London.
Unbelievable play by Williams. David Logan with the call, KOA. He's got some like ligament damage in his elbow, and the whole arm is all
got a cast on it,
janked up. And somehow he makes a diving catch to seal that game. Trevor Lawrence once again falls short in a big spot, and the Broncos survive and get a much-needed 21-17 win over the Jaguars at Wembley Stadium. Russell Wilson, not overly impressive here, Greggy, but at the same time, and I'm not like the biggest fan of the that ESPN team, but they did set the table nicely ahead of the last drive, where this is a big drive for Russell Wilson and the Broncos' immediate future, and he led them down the field for the go-ahead score. So 2 touchdown drives for Wilson late allows them to escape and exhale.
Yeah, he did not play well in this game. I know you hate the grading, but he will not grade well, I assume, on PFF. But the way...
I don't have a problem with grading. I have a problem with Aaron Rodgers telling us that his grade was great.
Yes, that was not great. But the way it ended was perfect. He started that drive you talked about with one of those old TD, sexy, deep balls to KJ Hamler. That's what he does well. You know what else he did in that drive? He scrambled on 3rd down to keep it going in the red zone. We need to see more of that, and then they end up running the ball in. He did make some big plays in this game, even if it was sandwiched around a lot of ineptitude and missing open receivers, and I think that's huge for them. We've heard some whispers, some reporting that who knows if Hackett is going to make it through the whole season here, and this was a game that you never want to get left back in England, so I think it's massive for them in the same way that it's crushing for the Jaguars, because I guess we've probably given up on the Jaguars, but I don't think they've given up on themselves, and this is a humbling win, I feel like, to not be able to close out. I think on both sides of the ball, defensively and offensively, there's big questions for the Jaguars.
Well, I think
I'm pissed off, Angelo.
It feels like every week if you're a Jaguars fan, it's there. We debated a little bit about Trevor Lawrence. I don't think anyone's saying Trevor Lawrence has fully arrived, but it's like on any level. But there are missed throws every week, and there are last-minute turnovers, and there's just too much left on the field, and it kind of masks over the kind of game you got from Travis Etienne, who was fantastic today. It's like, can the Jaguars learn to close? Could the Broncos learn to play offense at all? And at least we got halfway there today. Does it change what I think about the Denver Broncos? Not at all.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, they get to the bye at 3-5. They are no one's idea of a real contender right now. But it would have been a disaster if they didn't find a way to win this game. And I've said it myself. I beat the drum a little bit. Like, do we have to every week talk about whether Trevor Lawrence is living up to the hype? Well, now we're about halfway through his second season, and he was picked one spot ahead of Zach Wilson. I think he has longer rope with his organization than Zach Wilson will have with his.
He's a much better player to the eye.
Yes, he's had moments for sure, more moments than Zach Wilson, but maybe not a ton more. It's a little bit depressing to see this game where he throws a red zone interception on 1st and goal from the 1 in the first half. He throws that pick on the final drive, and you're waiting for him to kind of make that arrival and it's just not happening. So Jacksonville fans, I can only imagine the frustration you're feeling because you keep waiting to hear about this guy that you were told was this generational talent, and he's yet to arrive.
I felt like today was a turning point for that. Just looking at Twitter and some of the Jaguars reporters, I think in this spot, I think he averaged 4 yards per attempt, and that first and goal interception was inexcusable and was the biggest play in the game to me.
Why even throwing it, by the way?
Right. But either way, him throwing that in that spot, they should have been up 14-0, which good luck for the Broncos coming back. I just see the ball not going where he wants. He's better this year. He's getting closer to being a league average starter, but he's just not accurate. When he sets, and that's why blaming Urban Meyer for everything didn't make sense. There were so many times last year where he sets in a clean pocket and just misses the target he's throwing to.
That said, I feel I'd have much more patience with him and not even consider anything other than continuing to develop around him.
I agree with that.
He's not like a bottom 5 disaster that we're ready to jump ship on. It's also not a lot of island Jaguars games where everyone's watching Trevor Lawrence. There's a lot of people just looking at his box
It's
score
a good
thinking,
point. Phil Wessling, our friend.
Yes.
His daughter, Josie, wanted to let us know that we're too hard on Justin Fields. How about you start picking on Trevor Lawrence every once in a while, too? And so this little segment, I think, was for her. She's a Fields fan, and she's like, how come Trevor Lawrence doesn't take any grief? I
disagree with some of this analysis.
There.
I feel like Chicago, we've definitely given their quarterback some pop the last few weeks.
It's fair.
And Lawrence, we've been kind of on top of following his arc, which has been underwhelming, to say the least. All right. And by the way, if you're a Broncos fan, you're looking for positive signs behind just the win. Russell Wilson giving the interview after the game, saying Russell Wilson stuff, and then KJ Hamler comes and gives him a big bear hug from behind and tells him, "Oh, beautiful throw, baby." So it's like, okay, maybe everyone's getting a little bit swept away about this guy being the most hated man in the universe. Yes, Mark.
Well, I would just say, I know a huge cross-section of Broncos fans. They are irate with what's going on.
Yeah,
I don't think today changes anything.
Inside the team.
Right.
Yeah.
To another point, another one of their players, I think it was Tyree Cleveland, tweeted out we're all going to be doing knee highs on the flight home, and I don't underrate it. Just at least they feel like the world's not on top of them right now, and they're having fun with it at least.
We being the football public, we're all out on Russell Wilson, and he's certainly played very poorly this year. But maybe it's not total anarchy inside the locker room. That was just maybe.
Come on, y'all, Russell Wilson.
We will see.
Very exciting.
A little peek behind.
I really wanted Nathaniel Hackett to be a great part of this season, and it got about as dark as possible, as quickly as possible.
Yeah, he's in a lot of trouble still. Let's move on to Indianapolis, where the Commanders were looking to get back to 500.
In motion, Cam Sims. Heineke keeps it, goes for the end zone. What's the call? Touchdown! Touchdown! Touchdown, Washington! A 1-yard run by Heineke!
See, that's a team down in Miami. Listen to that call. They're talking Commanders football. Bram Weinstein with the call, WBIG. Taylor Heineke. That guy's got grit. Dan Campbell's going to be on the phone looking to trade the world for Taylor Heineke after he goes in from 1 yard out after connecting with the ever underrated Terry McLaurin on a deep strike to put them at the doorstep of the game-winning touchdown, which they got 17-16 over the Colts, who were dying. That was a huge game for the Colts to win that game, but they can't find a way to do it in the first start for Sam Ehlinger. Mark.
Ehlinger.
Oh, he hit you
just
with
so
an
you
Ehlinger
know.
in a big
No, just
spot.
Anybody hear that?
He hit you with an Ehlinger. I didn't hear anything. I don't know what I'm even talking about.
I'm for once not going to get involved.
Does that? We're in the flow of the show, Justin. We're having conversation. We're trying to bring this thing in for a landing, and you didn't get in my ear. You came over into the broadcast to correct my
personal
pronunciation.
Right. No, I think that's a look at me moment from our producer, which is becoming more frequent.
It's a little troubling. Anyway, let's talk the game. Thank you, Justin, for the correction.
Okay, now he's dying inside even more than Frank Reich is right now.
You're fired. All right, go ahead, Mark.
Oh, boy. McLaurin had an incredible 42-yard catch and run in this game before that.
He's one of your guys, right?
Yeah,
McLaurin?
Who's really a West guy.
He's a star.
Yeah.
You can have star guys. Gino's a star. He's my guy.
Greg, but your thing is, I'll have 82 people I'm friends with that watch football.
Oh, yeah.
Greg
likes players.
I'll take 96% of the guys, and it's just it's become a tired trope at this point.
Oh, yeah. Greg likes players. Oh, yeah. What a terrible thing.
He's loyal to football.
I'm loyal to football.
Graver's back.
To something, at least.
Helen McLaurin not loyal to?
Ripping the ball away from Stephon Gilmore on that final catch, too.
Man, that was a nasty little zing at the end there.
Wait, what am I not loyal to?
Where do
Can
we
you imagine
begin?
living
Who
with
knows? There are 82 bits. There's 82 bits a show where it tells me what's going on with the show. So enjoy yourself.
This is your fault, Justin. We were professionally bringing the show in for a landing.
Yeah, you guys want us to
This
get
is the
these
game of
games
the-
done
this is the
quickly.
game
We
of
gotta
the
get
year.
the game. It's gotta
This is
get
the
it
game
done.
of the year. We're going to give it 15 minutes. You guys are going to like it.
All right, Mark, let's try this again. Did you begin the point? I couldn't remember.
I just think Terry McLaurin is like the absolute beating heart of this team. But Taylor Heineke, to me, where I think it was like when it was announced he's going to come in for Wentz, or even before when it was suggested that he could come in and replace Wentz at some point if you kept getting these Wentzian games. And it's like he just brings something, that kind of the classic quarterback energy thing, where he's going to do a couple wild things. He had a terrible interception by Shaq Leonard. He was really lucky in another 3rd and 1. He didn't get picked. But then he goes and does this and creates the win. And they're kind of alive in a terrible NFC because of him and McLaurin together, and a defense that did their best with Sam Ehlinger. Ehlinger, to me, I'll wait another couple weeks. I do see a couple things. He made a couple big throws in this. He can run. What's funny? What now? What on earth now?
I just realized we're on camera, and I just picked up my backpack and was going through it looking for a power cord. It had nothing to do with
Okay, I can never tell in the show. I have
He's
nothing
on
else to
red
say.
alert.
I have
He's on
nothing
red
else to
alert.
say.
Well,
we can get an hour and 40 minutes into the
By
show.
the way, give me the quarterback on the Commanders that throws to Terry McLaurin. Who is that? It's Taylor Heineke. That's the guy who should be playing for the team.
Right. That route
Absolutely.
that McLaurin ran to set up the game winner, where I don't know if I've ever seen one quite like it, but he absolutely turned Stephon Gilmore around and ate his lunch. But this was a gag job of the highest order from the Colts. This is a brutal loss. They were ahead 16-7, a 2-score lead against Heineke, who at that point had a touchdown all day. In the fourth quarter, they get the ball back 2 different times. They go 3 and out, and then the end of the game. Reich chose to kick a field goal on 4th and 3 at the 21. Chose to kick a field goal on 4th and 2. I believe, or 4th and 2 on the goal line
from the Washington 2. That drove me nuts.
And then he also punted, and I know it would have been bold to do it, but it was 4th and inches on their own 35 to win the game up 6, and he decided to punt it away, and the defense couldn't hold it. So this is a full team absolute
But I do think
implosion.
some of that, I was way too conservative. There's no excuse for it, and it stands out in a season where we're in, where everyone's going for it all the time, and you should be. It just simply makes more sense. But I think part of it is the fact that Ehlinger was at your
but
playing
Jonathan
quarterback.
Taylor's your running back.
Yeah, but Taylor looked all right in this. He had his ankle retaped in the middle of the game. I think their offense is just simply limited in general. I think I want to see more from Ehlinger. I just don't really buy the fact that they really see him as a potential future solution at quarterback. I'm not really basing it off of this. I think we talked about when they made the announcement why they might have done it. He can move. He can run. He made a couple big throws in this. There's a little bit of chemistry with his wide receivers. He also had a terrible fumble where it's a Jonathan Allen sack in the end, but he lost the ball before even walking into pressure, and it was just like a classic. It's your first NFL game. But they're going to hand games away now when they had a chance to get back into in the AFC.
16 points. That's not going to get it done.
I can't believe these two teams have combined for a 7-1 record. No, 7-8-1 record. They are kind of the example of where the middle of the NFL is right now. I can't believe the Commandos are 4-4 on this 3-game winning streak.
They got Heineke doing it.
All 3 have been absolutely crazy. The Packers won, they earned it somewhat, but they kind of stole all 3. It's amazing, the Commanders.
And how about this? The NFC East has been a bit of a punching bag on this show over the years, and deservedly so, because it was bad for many years in the last 10. But you have the Eagles at 7-0, the Cowboys 6-2, the Giants 6-2, and the Commanders now rounded out the group at 4-4.
I mean, they are literally on pace to be one of the greatest divisions of all time. If that paced out, that would pretty much do it in terms of you almost have to win every out-of-division game to get records like that.
I want to make one thing clear. I'm not buying in on Taylor Heineke. I think we've learned now that there is a ceiling here, and it is what it is. And seeing Carson Wentz again, that would make sense at some point. You did give up a significant amount of assets to acquire him. But ride the hot hand while it's here.
I see. Yeah, at this point, there's no compelling reason to put Wentz back in there.
Can you guys just grade this tweet from Adam Schefter or this move from Taylor Heineke? Like on a 1 to 10, what do you guys think? For every game that Taylor Heineke plays at least 60% of the snaps and the Commanders win, he earns a $125,000 incentive. So basically every start, $125,000 extra. He puts that bonus to a new pair of Jordans in the colors of the team that Washington beat. This week, new blue and white Jordans.
I mean, it's just information that might have knocked out a priceless childhood memory out of my brain. And now I have that in my head.
Yeah, unnecessary. Did not need it. Did not need
what
to
a disaster.
Did Heineke just end Jordans?
Not essential information.
It's been 40 years. They've been on fire, and that's it.
I wish I didn't know that. I feel strongly how angry I am that that's now in my brain.
Like another sneakerhead.
Same. I mean, that was why I brought it up.
Another white bro with money into sneakers. Great.
Me and all my friends are jerks.
Greg has so many sneakers.
Well, he's not alone. There's a
but I don't really spend. Mine aren't like fancy sneakers. Mine
it's an
are
archetype
just
of clothing horse.
All right, there we go. That wraps up the video portion of today's program. Check in on the podcast side of things for the Sunday Night Football recap of the Packers and Bills, and follow us all week long. Content coming your way. Thank you for watching. See you next Sunday. Heed the call.